Hello, my darling 8th graders. We're going to talk about the rise of organized labor. As you may recall, in previous conversations, workers had to adjust to the new kinds of factories of the late 1800s. Before the Civil War, most factories were very small and family run. Bosses knew their workers by name and chatted with them about their families. Because most workers had skills that the factory needed, they could bargain with their bosses over wages and benefits. By the 1880s, the relationship between worker and boss had changed. People worked all day tending machines in large, crowded, noisy rooms. Because their skills were easily replaced, many workers were forced to work for low wages. In the garment trade, and other industries, sweatshops became commonplace. A sweatshop is a workplace where people work for long hours in very poor conditions for low pay. Most sweatshop workers were young women or children. That's not swear shop, it should be sweatshop, sorry. In 1900, the census reported nearly 2 million children under the age of 15 at work throughout the United States. Boys and girls labored in hazardous textile mills, tobacco factories, and garment sweatshops. In coal mines, they had to pick stones out of the coal for 12 hours a day, 6 days a week, earning very, very little money. Working children had little time for schooling. Lack of education also reduced their chances of working later on as adults. These boys are pin setters at a local bowling alley. They would set the pins up and then jump up and sit on the wall. This little girl is working in a garment factory. And these guys appear to be some kind of machine operators. Factories were filled with all sorts of hazards. Lung-damaging dust filled the air of textile mills. Cave-ins and gas explosions limited or plagued mines. In steel mills, vats of molten metal spilled without warning. Some workers had their health completely destroyed. Others were severely injured or killed in industrial accidents. In 1 year, 195 workers died in the steel mills of Pittsburgh. Because of all of these problems, workers found a way to fight back. Some workers slowed down their work pace, others went on strikes. Sometimes workers band together to win better conditions. However, most early efforts to form unions failed. One of the first unions to form was the Knights of Labor. At first it was open to skilled workers only. The members held union meetings in secret because if they had gotten caught they would have been fired. In 1879, the Knights of Labor decided to strengthen the union by opening it up to immigrants, African Americans, women, and unskilled workers. They didn't believe in strikes in the beginning, but they relied on rallies and meetings to win public support. Goals of the Knights included shorter work days, an end to child labor, and equal pay for men and women. Most importantly, though, they wanted workers and employers to share the benefits and share the profits that people made. In 1885, some members of the Knights of Labor launched a strike that forced the Missouri Pacific Railroad to restore wages that it had previously cut. The Knights did not officially support the strike, but workers everywhere saw it a victory for unions, and so union membership went from 60,000 to 700,000. There was trouble in Chicago. The Knights of Labor had a strike at the McCormick Company. The McCormick Harvester Company in Chicago then hired strike breakers, or sometimes they're called scabs, people to come in and work when the regular workers are on strike. They clashed, they got into fights, police opened fire on them, and 4 workers were killed. The next day, thousands of workers gathered in Haymarket Square to protest the killings. This rally was led by anarchists, who are people who oppose all forms of organized government. Suddenly, a bomb exploded, killing 7 police officers. 8 anarchists were arrested for their part in the Haymarket riot, as the incident was called. No real evidence was ever found linking the men to the bombing, but they were tried, convicted, and hanged. A wave of anti-labor swept over the United States, and people started to blame labor unions for the deaths. Despite the failure of the Knights of Labor, in 1886, a cigar maker named Samuel Gompers organized a new union in Ohio called the American Federation of Labor. This was a little bit different because workers didn't join the AFL. Rather, they joined a trade union, which was a union of all people that worked in the same trade. Let's say you were a steel worker, you were in the steel workers trade union, and then that trade union joined the American Federation of Labor. They had very practical goals. They focused on higher wages, shorter hours, and improved working conditions. This also led to a fight for collective bargaining, which is the right of unions to negotiate with the management for workers as a group. The AFL also supported the use of strikes to achieve its goal, and it became very, very popular became membership of about 500,000. African Americans, immigrants, and unskilled workers, however, were not allowed to join that union. By 1890, 1 million women worked in American factories. Some women formed their own unions, like the Washerwomen's Association of Atlanta, but none of them were very successful. The best-known woman in the labor movement was Mary Harris Jones, known as Mother Jones. She devoted her whole adult life to the cause of workers. She said that children working in the textile mills, quote, barefoot, reaching thin little hands into the machinery, unquote, calling for the end of these abuses of children. The International Ladies Garment